Well, kia ora, tēnā koutou katoa. It's Rachel Froggatt here, Secretary General of the International Working Group on Women in Sport, and of course, a New Zealand Chief Exec of Women in Sport, Aotearoa. And welcome to Insight Bites. This week we are talking to Cate Sexton, Head of Women's Rugby at New Zealand Rugby. Cate, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. Lovely to talk to you, Rachel.
Thank you so much for joining us. This is, as you know, a very quick 10-minute conversation with a leader in the sector telling us what's going on in a space where, things are moving really quickly right now. So we thought, well, it's moving quickly, let's have a quick conversation. So I thought maybe first question, for those of you, that don't know much about what you do, did you want to give the guys a bit of a steer on what your role entails?
Yeah, sure. So I head women's rugby at New Zealand Rugby. My role's been established since 2015, so quite a new role. Has changed slightly over those times, but the key thing I do is drives the strategy around women in rugby. So there's 5 key focus areas. They're winning, obviously, on the world stage with our black jersey teams. We've got to grow participation. We're working on a program around having inspirational leaders leading in our communities and on board levels. We're really trying to grow the profile of our game and maximising the commercial opportunities that we can along the way. So yeah, it's quite broad but exciting.
So we're bringing this new Insight Bites series to everyone with our partners at the Trans-Tasman Business Circle. And during the lockdown from level 4 through to level 1, we had a video series along the way talking to leaders in the sector. And I think it's really clear that COVID has been a massive challenge for sport. Can you tell us, what have you been working through over the last 12 weeks?
Yeah, it's certainly been interesting, hasn't it? For us, and particularly for me, it's first taking a breath and understand the impact it has on our people and our programs, and then really prioritising what we can put up this year, particularly around our Black Ferns and the World Cup is a real priority for us, and preparing our teams as best we can, ensuring that other participating nations can be prepared well enough for the World Cup, and obviously Farah Palmer Cup is part of that. So, they've been the critical thing for us, as well as our people, and then as we move forward around the opportunities that in this environment, making the most of those opportunities as things have really been turned on their head.
And you mentioned the Farah Palmer Cup. I think I'd be remiss to not chat with you about some of the media commentary and public commentary around the nature of the return of the competition. Can you tell us what happened there?
Well, nothing really happened. It was more around being patient. As I said, we had to first understand if we could play rugby. So that was the first stage, and we needed to generate revenue, and at the moment the women's game doesn't generate enough revenue to cover its costs. So it's important to understand that first, important to understand the impact of our players, our people, and so we've worked hard with our provincial unions to collaborate, and we're really pleased that through that time we have got the Farah Palmer Cup up in a slightly different format, but with all our 13 provincial unions from last year, which is fantastic, particularly in a situation that a lot of people are in at the moment.
I think we were all really pleased to see Northland come back. I think they were a bit scared because they'd only been there for a few minutes, it felt like. So awesome to see the whole 13 teams back there as well. And you sort of mentioned around revenue, and we've talked about a lot ourselves over the last few weeks, is that often women's sport is still fairly immature commercially. So it sits in we often describe it as the loss side of the profit and loss, and it requires investment to grow and to protect it. But it's been quite apparent that New Zealand Rugby has had challenges as a whole, as an organisation, and cost cutting, has been happening across the board, and a reprioritisation of what's important going forward. Where does women's rugby, sit right now, and then into the future, 3 and 5 years into the future?
is a priority for New Zealand rugby. Otherwise, I don't think I'd have my role. So I'm quite happy about that. But, it is one of our key priorities going forward, post our 2020 strategy. Fantastic. We have an event next year, September, the World Cup. So we've got a really focus point for us at the moment. It is to prepare New Zealand for that, prepare our teams for that. But everyone has had to take a pause and had to have some sort of trimming along the way. But yeah, we're quite comfortable where we are at the moment, and we just really need to push forward now, as long as we can continue to play rugby. So yeah, really thankful for the whole of New Zealand that we've got to the state that we are in. Talking to a couple of my colleagues from other nations, they're still in lockdown, and here we are about to start club rugby. So we're in a very privileged situation compared to other nations at the moment.
And this is a little bit off script, but do you think it'd be a really good idea to get some of our big, hulking male rugby players to stand at the border and protect us from this virus crossing over as it has done in the last few days that we're all unhappy about?
I don't know if they'll be. I think they're specialists for that. But I you can understand the importance of ensuring that everyone is safe as they come into New Zealand and they start to get back with family and friends. So yeah, it's a little bit of a glitch, but it's a good reminder for everyone that it's very, very quickly can things change.
Absolutely. And you touched on the World Cup next year, which obviously is massively exciting to have that coming here and to have our world champion Black Ferns defending their title at home. Can you tell us what's the chat been over the last few weeks and what can we expect next year?
Well, yeah, the chat is we're probably in a good position that the timing of the World Cup is that we should be in a globally okay for international competition. What we are really looking forward to seeing is our best athletes, our best players in the world playing on New Zealand soil, and New Zealand is getting behind it. Lots of colour, lots of noise, as there are in most women's events. So we're really excited about it, but it is going to be a bit of a sprint. But again, that comes with opportunities, and we just do things slightly differently. But certainly got a great organisational team on board, and they're ready to go now that we can start moving.
And we had the privilege of chatting with Cate Sexton, General Manager of Women's Rugby at World Rugby a few weeks ago, and she was pretty adamant about women's rugby going forward and the work that she's doing to protect and grow the sport. What are you seeing, not just from Cate, but from World Rugby as a whole? Has anything changed, since COVID came in?
Yes, things change, and as I said, I think it's around a pausing and understanding. There's a lot of work, as you can imagine, in all of World Rugby, with all of the nations under pressure in how they support them both for the men's and the women's game. But certainly with Cate at the helm, and she's got great direction, very adamant that we were moving forward. So, there's a lot of work being done behind the scenes around a global international calendar. It will certainly give certainty every year to international games across 3 levels as teams start to emerge, in the evolution of rugby. The commercialisation, how they've uncoupled it from the men's game, there's great opportunity there. The profile, and the connections they're making. So certainly really supportive and really leading the way for women's rugby, which is really, really helpful, and I really enjoy working with Cate.
And you must be in touch, directly with a number of these unions around the world as well. What are they telling you about the World Cup next year and their preparations?
Well, yeah, last week I was on a call with, actually this week, France and England and Australia, Canada, US, and very much all still gearing up for the World Cup. Again, it is just when they can start to play is, I suppose, the frustration. They're all slightly different. But as I said, I think we're far enough out at the moment that we'll be still able, it's not in jeopardy. So everyone's sort of gunning to that, and it is going to be a bit of a sprint. But, for the Black Ferns, we're working on post Whara Palmer Cup having some internationals if we can actually get our borders open, which will be great for the players, but also for New Zealand to get to see a woman in black on stage at home.
I'm so excited about it. It's a bit ridiculous, but I think it's the first time I personally have been able to see our Black Ferns play live in a World Cup. So I'm super excited. So we're going to keep this conversation really quick. So I'm going to ask you a couple more questions, and then we're going to wind up. So the last one, I guess, is I was really keen to know, like, as a leader, you can't. It's so difficult to prepare for something like COVID-19. What have you learned? What's been maybe the hardest thing, the biggest decision? What have you almost learned about yourself? During the last little while.
Oh, I think for me, the importance of being calm in a storm. It was a big storm. So having that calmness as a lead, over communicating. So as people were being isolated and not being able to connect as well, there's so much unknown going on. There's still so much unknown. It's really important to over communicate with people so they're not starting to fill their own gaps with their own assumptions. I think I found it really, really difficult. Well, not difficult, it's been hard with, people, especially with the changes and the impact it's had on them. It's really uncertain for people. So that I find that, that's really hard. But I think the important thing is about being calm, being patient, keeping communicating, and being really agile. Things change so quickly. You just got to be comfortable, really being uncomfortable. That's probably what I've learned, and just trusting that with a bit of patience and planning lots of different scenarios, you just have to keep moving forward.
And when we were chatting earlier today, I said to you, if there's one question you'd like me to ask you, what would it be? And I loved your response, actually. It was literally, can you ask me something along the lines of, if I had unlimited resource, what would I want to achieve with women's rugby over the next 10 years?
Yeah. Yes. Well, how long have I got? But I think I'm going to focus mainly on team sports. So pretty passionate about making a difference in women's sport. So I'm not going to keep it just for rugby. If I had unlimited funds, I would ensure that all our national team sports, their domestic competitions, were really financially sustainable. Then each of those national bodies could really focus on the support and the change that they could make within their communities, how they profile their players to really influence back in their communities, to grow some great leaders, to give women and girls confidence to lead, to feel as though they belong. And for me, probably partnering with some of the government agencies that we can long-term really impact positively on women's abuse rates, child abuse rates, obesity, I suppose. That is really important to me, and I think something collaboratively as sports bodies we could really influence in the long term. So that's my wish.
That's a very inspiring wish. I'm really happy to jump on board to help you achieve that in the future. I think it's really exciting. Thank you so much to Cate Sexton, Head of Women's Rugby at New Zealand Rugby, and a massive thanks as ever to our amazing partners at the Trans-Tasman Business Circle, who are working with us to bring you these insight bites. Tēnā koutou katoa.
Thanks.